The High Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons, Pamela Aubrey, and Christy Jones. So let's join them now in their current interview with a high-vibing individual.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the High Vibe Nation. We want to help people take a greater role in love, connection, and inspired action. I'm here with my co-hosts, Pamela Aubrey and Christy Jones. And today we have on the show the amazing Bob Donnell.
Hey, ladies.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Welcome.
It's not very often that I get to sit between three beautiful ladies who have an infectious spirit about them to begin with.
It's your lucky day.
That's right.
It's your lucky day. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Bob, start us out with sharing who is Bob Donnell and where do you come from in your heart and what you want to share with our audience and the world?
Well, I think it boils down to a calling. And I'm very clear about my calling. My calling is to give inspired, strategic action. So first we create a vision, then we create the behavior that needs to be demonstrated in order to get the accomplished outcome that we want. So when I look back at age 15, I was asked, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I had a gentleman ask me that, and I didn't understand why, but I understood now that what he was trying to do was prepare me because he knew that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer and was given 6 months to live. And what he did was he kind of framed my life for me by saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? I had no idea. But shortly thereafter, I began on a mission. And that mission was to figure out, how do I become the person that I'm designed to be, and so that I can live the life that I'm designed to live.
Wow. Gosh, Pam, what do you got to
That's
say?
incredible. Yeah. So I guess the thing that comes to my mind is, what was going through your head, at 15 years old that you would have felt inspired? I mean, most 15-year-olds aren't thinking more than a week down the road.
Yeah, neither was I. Mm-hmm. But I had good mentors in my life. And, I knew that my mom had been diagnosed. I knew that she was given 6 months to live, but, denial on, she'll live forever. So I wasn't really planning on that. But when he said, well, what do you want to be? I said, I don't know. Why are you asking me? Right? Again, boils back down to my question to him. Why are you asking me? And his comment was, because you can learn a product or service or an industry, or you can learn something that drives every product, service, or industry. And I'm like, what's that? He goes, human behavior. If you understand why people do or don't do certain things, you can be successful with anything you do. I'm like, sign me up. Kind of facetiously. But he took me at my word and said, great, go back and become a peer counselor at your school. So the next year I did. I became a peer counselor. And then fast forward 3.5 years, I founded my nonprofit organization working with suicide prevention and crisis management and crisis intervention. And it was based on that whole question that he asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I have no idea. If you understand this, you can get XYZ result. Okay, there's the formula. I want XYZ result. So what do? He says, go become a peer counselor. I took immediate action. I didn't delay. I took immediate action. I'm very coachable. And then based on that, it formulated a strategy for the rest of my life. Now, have I always followed that strategy? No. Have I always followed that calling? No. But I can tell you what, July 19, 1979, before that gentleman asked me that question, July 19, 1979, I was at a youth camp, and I knew that I had a calling on my life, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if I was to be a pastor, a youth pastor. I didn't know what I was, but I knew that I had a calling on my life, and that was to use my voice or use whatever I had to have an impact on people. And so when that happened, once I established that was a calling on my life in July 19, 1979, it was laying the foundation for that gentleman to ask me that question. When he asked me that question, it all made sense. And then I said, that's what I need to do first.
Wow.
That.
What, I'm hearing in that, Bob, is, what I've learned from you in the short time that I've learned, met you and gotten to know you, is how important connection and asking the right questions are.
Yeah.
It's really,
it's only everything, as my friend Donnell
right,
would say. It's only everything.
And what's interesting is what opened up this up for you was a question that got you to think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you're on a really good point there. I think it's one thing to be asked a question; it's another thing to give it thought. And what we see today is we see a lot of people asking questions, but they're asking the wrong question, and so they're getting the wrong answer.
Wrong answer.
What are they asking? When I show up in Las Vegas after the mass shooting, what's the number one question I was asked? Wow, how do you make sense of this? And I said, you can't make sense of a senseless behavior. It was the wrong question to ask. What do I do with this new information that I have? What do I do with this newfound reality that I have? What do I do with this understanding that there's evil in the world, that these people, things happen like this? What do I do with that? That's a much better question than how do I make sense of this? You're not going to make sense of a senseless behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
So ask the question, but make sure it's the right question, and then give thought. Don't just give a flippant answer. The flippant answer gets you a flippant response to life. And most people want an intentional response out of life, not a flippant one.
Right.
Yeah. They don't always know that they want something deeper.
Yeah. And you're right, Chrissy, except at the one point that everyone does know that they want something deeper. They just don't know what that deeper is, and they don't know how to express it. And so therefore they don't know how to ask for it or look for it. But man, when it hits, in my TED Talk, I talk about this. When you experience connection, when you experience someone where they actually look in your eyes, they see you and you see them and you're like, holy cow, oh my gosh, nothing else will suffice. Nothing. No drug, no amount of wealth, no number of cars in your driveway, no bigger house. Nothing will suffice once you've experienced it. But if they haven't experienced it, they don't know what they're missing yet.
Gosh, that brings me back to the moment that I very first met you. So I remembered when we met Super Bowl Sunday here in Phoenix.
Yeah,
and
Lee Steinberg's party.
Yes, Lee Steinberg's party. And you did just that. You looked straight into my eyes. Now, here's the thing, is fast forward 6 years later, and I'm talking with Ken Walls, and he asks me, do you know Bob Donnell? And I'm like, no, I don't. And then I'm like, Bob Donnell. And after we got off the phone, your name kept coming up in my memory. And so what I remember the most when I went online and I looked at your face, your eyes, because when you spoke to me, you looked directly in my eyes. So when we were reconnected, myself and Pam, what was the first impression from that connection with us?
Well, I mean, okay, look, let's just cut to the chase on all of that. You are both beautiful ladies, but your spirit from the inside beauty is even greater than the outside beauty for both of you. So it was very easy to go, I like these people. And look, here's the thing I'll say about connecting. Whatever gift you have, whether it's outward beauty or whether it's an eloquent tongue or whether it's the ability to speak multi-language, whatever it is, whatever that gift is, use it, maximize it. You ladies did that. I remember the first time we met, Sherry, at the Super Bowl party. And I remember going, wow, she's got a great heart and she really wants to impact the world in her own way, which is really powerful. When I see both of you at Next Level by Association in Scottsdale, I remember thinking the same thing. Wow, these are two ladies that are really about others, about serving, about being their authentic self. And so it was very easy to just go, let's go with this. And I think that's the problem is a lot of times we don't have anything to go on. And so what we do is we pause. And when we can just get to that point where we just begun to go, what am I going to build on? Look, when I meet somebody, there's three things that I'm looking for. Are they going to be a strategic partner? Are they going to be a great quality relationship in my life? Or are they going to be a great a great client? Now, it doesn't mean that they have to fit in one of those. If they don't fit into any of them, that's fine too. We're just not a match. But I remember when I met you both that I was like, these are two great ladies, period. Great ladies. And that was my focus.
I love that, because I remember the connection and the feeling. One of the things I loved the most about you is that you've taught all three of us that. You've taught us about connecting more, about listening, about getting to know the people and building that relationship.
Well, thank you. The only way I can teach that is if you're willing to learn. And so, it's never on the teacher. It's on the student. And so I applaud you for being able to learn and being willing to learn.
Well,
Then
thank
I can
you.
show
To
up.
that point, how, where do people start to do that? If this is kind of a new concept to them, what is that first step they can take?
I think the best thing I can say is inquisitive. Are you interested more than being, right, interesting? Are you interested? When I meet somebody, you can immediately tell if they're interested, right? And that's the focus. So the first thing I know that people have to have is an inquisitive spirit. They have to be willing to say, but, what if, how? They need to be asking questions. Questions are the sign of inquisitive. If somebody stands up and as soon as you meet them, they just start telling you about their life story, is there any inquisitive in that? No. But if they start asking questions about you, it's inquisitive. Inquisitive is the key. Plus, I think that people just need to, I think as we develop as human beings and we create more in our lives, it becomes natural to say, what if what I know is like this much? Like this much. I had a whiteboard at my house and it was one whole wall. And I used to ask people when they would come to my house for seminars, I'd say, so out of this whole whiteboard, if this is everything there is to know about that subject matter, how much of it do you think you know? If that's the whole knowledge of it, and everyone always said, speck, a dot. And I said, but yet when you go to solve a problem in your life, the number one thing you do is go back to what you know to solve the problem. What I would rather do is I would say, what do I not know about this? A hell of a lot more than what I know. Now, let's operate from that place and let's see if I can come up with a different solution. And I always come up with a different solution when I operate from what I don't know versus what I know, because I can always default back to what I know.
Love that.
So how would you, this is coming up to me, Bob, how would you learn what you don't know that you don't know?
Right.
Well, I think it's really easy, actually. I mean, think about it. If you say, I need to fix my car, and maybe we don't know that much about cars, but we know some things. We know that we probably need to change our oil. We probably know that we need to put gas in it. Even if it's the smallest thing that we know we need to put gas in it, we know something.
Okay.
So we don't want to keep going back to that. We want to go back to, what do I not know? Well, I don't know why it's not starting, but except I have put gas in it, so it's not a gas issue.
Okay.
So what is the issue? I don't know. Okay, so if you don't know, that's a great place to work. Because now you begin to explore versus looking for just the things you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a little bit of a weird analogy, because obviously you would put gas in the car first to make sure that wasn't the problem.
It's almost like checking things off. Like, okay, it's not the gas.
Right.
So is there noise?
Right. Is there noise?
Like, okay. So what I like is that it gets your brain involved too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then what are the other clues that you could take from that would lead you on your next step?
Asking better questions. Again, it's always going to boil down to the better question, right? Do I hear the car even turn over? Yes. Okay. So it could be battery, could be a starter. I mean, it could be a lot of different things. But we start to just ask better questions. Once we've identified certain things, we can ask better questions. If you're looking to explore something new in your life, maybe a new relationship, maybe a new aspect of health, maybe a new, a new business opportunity. The important thing is to say, okay, I know this, but what do I not know about starting a business?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I say, what do I not know about starting a business? Well, I don't know. Do I need to file a DBA? Do I need to file a nonprofit? What do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
If I can say I don't know this, then that's a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can go and talk to an attorney. Then I can go talk to a business coach or a business consultant. But I have to ask that question, but what do I not know?
Yeah.
What do I know is always already evident. I just need to ask, what do I not know? And then start working on that.
Yeah. And then knowing that people that have those answers.
It's going to boil down to that, then the power of association, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know people that know people? Look, I was consulting this one guy. His business partner had stolen everything. He lost his whole business. He lost his relationship and his family. I mean, it was just terrible. And he says, man, I'm starting all over. I'm starting at ground zero. I said, really? Do you know how to get vendors? Well, yeah. I said, do you have a relationship with some of those vendors that still trust you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to establish a new corporation? Yeah. I said, you're not starting at zero.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a break, man. You've got way ahead of the person that's starting at zero.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did was just start building again on what we know. And then now what do I not know? Well, I don't know how to get a vendor that got burned in the last transaction to extend credit to me now.
Mm.
Okay, there's a better question. Now we started working on how do we position ourselves so that we begin more trustworthy with them. And one of the question for him was I said, here's what you want to do. You want to sit down and say, hey, look, I've got an apology to make, and I just want to do that in person.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does that.
Mm-hmm.
He said, okay. And I said, now when you're sitting in front of that vendor, you're going to say, look, I'm going to own 100% responsibility for what happened. You got screwed. And it was never my intention. My business partner and I did not see eye to eye. And some things happened that I did not have immediate control of, but I do have immediate control of this. I need to own up and apologize to you. And I need to ask you for forgiveness or whatever you want, however you want to word that. And then, and here's what, if you never want to extend another dollar to me, I totally understand. There is no heartfelt, no harm. And on the other hand, if you do, here's what my promise is. You will deal directly with me. There will never be another person that comes between yours and my relationship. And he went, okay. And he did. And I think he went to like 5 vendors, and 3 of the 5 said yes. 3 of the 5 said, let's do this again. Let's try it differently. But he had to offer some safeguards, but he also had to own the responsibility. Yeah. But in asking what I don't know, he began another question, and that was, how can I get back somebody's trust when I've lost it? Mm-hmm. And then he took immediate action.
Mm-hmm.
That's so powerful. And to me, it kind of speaks to giving ourselves a little bit of credit too, that yes, we do know some things, but that, we have it within us, the wisdom within us to figure out whatever it is we need to figure out.
Yeah.
Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we do is when we do that with people, whether it's ourselves or someone else, we empower ourselves and empower them. My friend, I think you guys saw the interview that I did with my friend, Alex Vesely, whose grandfather is Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, one of the greatest books ever, in my opinion, and especially on human behavior. And he said that his grandfather was speaking at San Quentin prison, and he stood there and told all these inmates, these are some of the hardest criminals out there. And he stood there and he said, the reason you're here, it's your fault. This is your fault that you're here. And he said he met with such warmth, enthusiasm, wasn't his words, but something to that effect. Because, and I said, why do you think your grandfather got such an applause out of that, if you want to call it an applause? And he said, I'm not sure. And I said, is it possible that maybe for once they felt empowered? Like if it was somebody else's fault, there's nothing they could do about it. Mm-hmm. I'm just at their whim. But when they said it's your fault, they go, well, it's my fault. Then that means I can do something about it. Mm-hmm. And they felt empowered. And I think when we do that to ourselves or with our clients or with our friends or our children, we empower them and we empower ourselves. And when we operate from an empowered state, we always get a better result than when we're operating from a disempowered state.
Well, I think so much of it comes down to, being mindful in the moment, being present in the moment, and really recognizing when you're going into that habit of wanting to beat yourself up or break yourself down, or even like asking someone like you a question without fear, because there are people that probably look at you and think, wow, he knows so much and he's got this great wisdom, and may not even ask you a question and, be afraid.
Yeah. And who's that on?
Exactly. It would be me taking responsibility. And even here, she has a question. She says, how has the events that spurred your inner game book and your pillars continued to get you to your next level and be able to help others? And that would be a question that I would have for you too.
Yeah. The bottom line is when I wrote Mastering Your Inner Game, it was because I had lost my daughter, was living in my car and just trying to figure out how to put my life back together. And I said, I've got to build a foundation. If I don't, I'm screwed. Everything goes downhill from there. And so building that foundation was really important. So Mastering Your Inner Game was that part. It's a 7-pillar part. And in that, I said, well, what are the important things that I know I'm going to have to rebuild my life? And the first one started with a commitment. There's 7 pillars, so I can only go into 1 or 2 of them, but one is commitment. What does commitment look like? When I ask myself, what does commitment look like? The word commitment, great. What does it look like? Because we think in terms of pictures, not in terms of letters. What does it look like? Well, I said, well, one of the things that immediately look at as a Christian, what it looks like is Jesus Christ hanging on the cross for everyone. Like, there's no greater commitment than that. What else does it look like? Well, it looks like my mom when she was dying of cancer, going through chemotherapy, my senior year in high school, and in the middle of the night, she's crying on the porch. And I had already given her a morphine shot for the night, so I knew she didn't, I couldn't give her another one. I said, what's going on? Are you okay? She said, yeah. I said, are you afraid of dying? She said, no, Bob, I know where I'm going. I said, so are you in pain? Do you need something else? No, I'm okay. So then what's hurting so bad right now that you're crying? And she looked at me and she says, I'm afraid that I'll not see you graduate from high school. With tears in her eyes. And I thought, that's commitment. Oh my gosh, that's commitment. So when you think about that, you think about what does commitment look like? Now I have a reference point. Watch this. Now, if I say, okay, I'm committed to making $5,000 in sales. Really? Does my commitment look like either one of those examples? No, then I better not use the word committed. Or I need to raise my standard and show what commitment really looks like. And that's the option. Settle for less, step up your game. And I always say step up rather than step down.
Well, and that speaks to that idea of fear too, because a lot of people don't want to make a commitment because of fear or stepping out of their comfort zone. Because they're comfortable being in that.
Yeah, and one of the next level pillars I teach is that fear and procrastination, which is basically what you're talking about, fear and procrastination, will always take a backseat to a greater sense of urgency. They just haven't found the reason yet. They haven't found the urgency behind it. If you said, I'm afraid of doing this. Okay, well, if you don't do it, your daughter dies. How fast are you going to do it? I'm going to do it. What happened to fear? What happened to procrastination? Fear and procrastination will always take a greater sense of a backseat to a greater sense of urgency. So when somebody's talking about fear or they're talking about procrastinating or they're just talking about, I just don't know what to do. Look, given the right incentive, you'll figure out what to do and you'll figure out how to do it quicker. But we have to be the catalyst for that for ourselves. We have to create a sense of urgency.
Wow. Any thoughts around that, Christy?
Yeah, I mean, what's coming to me in hearing this is really you had a sense of urgency, Bob.
I did.
And it sounds like, for you from a deep place of wanting, of one of the things that I've learned from you too is you don't bypass the hard stuff.
Yeah, you got to be willing to have the difficult conversation with yourself and others.
Yeah. And from that, and sometimes it's those difficult conversations of those difficult experiences that really allows us that opportunity to pull ourselves together and rise. And what I admire about you is you did that, and you share that, and you allow people to bring out their pain too and their successes in the conversations that you have with them.
Thank you. I think what I took from that whole experience and from every experience in my life, I believe that every experience you and I have gone through, every experience, good, the bad, the ugly, has been the price we've paid to be who we are today. Some people have looked at that as an expense. Some people have looked at it as an investment. If you're looking at it as an expense, you're expecting nothing in return. If you're looking as an investment, you have an anticipated return on that investment that you're expecting. So when something happens, I look and I go, is this an expense or an investment? An investment. Then what return am I expecting? Well, in that case, I'm expecting to have a better life than I did present at that moment. I'm also expecting to utilize this information to inspire others. Again, go back to my calling. What was my calling, right? Then I look and say, okay, what other return on investments? I want to be able to show someone else how to do the same thing, not just inspire them. I want to inspire them, but then I want to give them strategic action on how they can do the same thing no matter what has happened in their life, divorce, financial ruin, whatever it is. And so once I got to that point, then I was like, okay, so now where's my return on investment? Now I've adapted a philosophy that says, where's the return? What's the return I'm looking for? And if I'm not looking for a return, then it's merely an expense. But I look at things as an investment, and therefore I'm always looking for what the return is. The price paid is going to be the same, but one's going to give me a return, and one's just going to give me another expense to my bottom line.
Wow.
Well, and the question that comes to me is, how, if you're not in a place where you feel that sense of urgency, then how do you get to that?
Well, I would have to know more about the situation to be able to answer that, because there's, everyone wants a cookie cutter. And I think that, a lot of times we look at it and, oh, just give me a cookie cutter answer. Here's the problem with that is for me to run a mile is a different requirement of me than to run 10 miles. Still running, and it's still miles, but one's going to require a larger commitment than the other. So depending on what the situation is, I would say probably there's going to be a different answer for that. But to just break it down to the simple part of that is going to say, what's the outcome that I want? And then what price am I willing to pay to get that? Plain and simple. And then to take that next step would be say, what if I do? And what if I don't? And so when we go, well, what if I do? I'll make more money. Great. That's not very emotional for most people. Most people don't get excited about just making more money, because I can give you $100 and now you've made more money. Doesn't solve your financial woes, right? So we have to get really clear on, well, what is it that we're really wanting? And then say, what price am I willing to pay? Tim McGraw wrote a great song where he actually sings the song where he talks about how bad do you want it? And is it like breathing? Is it like sleeping? Is it like eating? Is it everything? Well, then you'll accomplish way more with that than you will. It says, well, I just want to make more money, right? For people in relationships, I always ask them, how bad do you want a great relationship? Well, I want a great relationship, but I mean, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to sacrifice what your want and your need is in a given moment for the other person? Well, it depends. Right there, I can tell you right now, it ain't going to work. Ain't going to work. Somebody says, Bob, I want to make more money. How bad do you want that? Oh, I want it so bad. Great. So if you don't do it, I had a gentleman who was very successful, but he got me and he's in a downtime. And he said, my markets and my business is failing. I said, well, what's going to happen if you don't step up your game, if you don't start making more money? Oh man, if I don't start making more money, I'll probably lose my house. I won't be able to pay my bills. I'll probably end up losing my car and lose my house. I said, so what are you going to do if you lose your house? How long have you lived there? 30 years. I said, is it not paid off? No, I've mortgaged it a couple times. So, what if you do? What if you lose your house? Here's the telltale sign. He's, well, I guess we'll just have to go rent an apartment. I said, go rent the apartment, bud. You might as well do it. You've already made it acceptable. One of the next level pillars is whatever becomes acceptable becomes inevitable, good or bad. And I said, so you've already made it acceptable. You've already thought about this. You've actually given it way more thought than you should have. When I said, what's going to happen if you lose your house? The correct answer, the answer that would have been the most empowering was like, that ain't going to happen, sir. I will make sure that does not happen. I said, so here's the question. What's it going to feel like when you go to your wife and say, honey, I know we've lived here 30 years. I know we've paid on this house 30 years, but I couldn't step up my game.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said, oh, I just can't even imagine. And I go, well, that's a good thing that you can't imagine that, because you already imagined moving into an apartment. Guess what? Within 7 months, they had lost their house. And they ended up moving to an apartment. Whatever becomes acceptable becomes inevitable. But watch this. If he had made it acceptable to say, what's acceptable is that I'm going to raise my bar. I'm going to raise my standard. I'm going to put forth more effort. I'm going to put more strategic action. I'm going to hire you as my coach. If he had said that, and then it became acceptable to make more money, that also would have been inevitable. But see, there was something inside of him that it wasn't acceptable to make more money. It was more acceptable to lose the house.
It makes me think of, I hear the Next Level by Association pillars coming out, and the pillars stand out so much for me. And so because I've now developed a relationship and a connection with you, it's like I told Christy, it's like my radar is on alert for the next pillar you're going to bring out. So I'm curious, for the benefit of our audience, where do those pillars come from? And do they just keep coming out of you in the moment?
Yeah, they come out of the moment. They might be inspired by something someone says. They might be inspired by something I watched on television. They might be inspired by something I read. But what they are is there's something that I've got over 120 of them now. And so they just come at a given moment. And so it's not like I sit down and go, okay, I'm going to write down a pillar. It's like this life experience, this story that I heard, or this movie that I watched gives me the idea. And then I take that and extrapolate from that what works. What works. And then that becomes a pillar. If I know that it works, it can become a pillar. If with Edison, it's been said that he failed 10,000 times. That's not an exact number, but he failed. But he didn't fail. He found out what didn't work, right? In that perspective. Now, he did fail. Trust me, it was still a fail. He failed. Problem is, the challenge is that take that failure and go, okay, so what did I learn in that? What do I not know? What did I not know 10 minutes ago that I do know now? And then say, okay, now if I got it to work once, then I can make it. All I have to do is rinse and repeat and duplicate. Why do franchises work so well? Because they can just rinse and repeat. Bottom line with our life is the same thing. When we get to that point where we start to make headway, then we go, okay, if I know how to make $5, then I know how to make 10. And if I know how to make 10, I know how to make 50. If I know how to make 50, I know how to make 100. If I know how to make 100, I can make 10,000. But we have to get to the point where we go, okay, now, what do I know? What do I not know? What do I need to know? And then where do I get that? And that's the power of association. I've surrounded myself with brilliant people in my life. I've surrounded myself with people that feed me, that nurture me. I've surrounded myself with people, and I say this all the time, that my focus is to surround myself with people that know the deepest, darkest stuff about me, and they love me as if they didn't know one of those things. Because when you have people like that, They don't love you based on what you're doing for them. They don't love you based on what you've done. They don't love you on how good you look, how good you're doing, what's going. They love you because of period. You know, I just got I'm going to share something personal. I just got a text from an ex girlfriend of mine. We dated for a couple of years. Amazing friend. She's hired me as her coach before, hired me as her coach afterwards, and she just got proposed to. And she wrote me this text and said, you know, I just want to tell you, I would not have been in this position to say yes to this had I not experienced what unconditional love was from you. You taught me how to unconditionally love. And I remember, because we sat down and had a conversation, she goes, I don't know how, you know, I can just love people or love you when something's wrong. And I go, because you don't love somebody based on the circumstances. You love somebody because you love them. And she learned that lesson. And she's now in a great relationship, and I'm really excited for her. But I mean, the thing is we've got to get to that point where we surround ourselves with those people that can speak to us. You guys saw my thing with Wesley. Wesley can say whatever he wants to me, and I may get pissed. I can say anything I want to say to Wesley. Anything. I can tell him to go F off. I can whatever. Because I know that our relationship is never in question, and our relationship is never at stake. When you surround yourself with those people, I mean, I look at like guys like Scott Duffy, who sold his business to Richard Branson, who is an entrepreneur. He's just an amazing guy. Wrote the book called Launch, wrote the book called Breakout. You know, I surround myself with people like that. Larry Broughton, who owns, you know, multiple hotels, Broughton Hotels, former Green Beret, Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. These are my people. Wesley Gu, Cindy Vaughn, the gal that I was just talking to. She's one of my inner circle people. These are people that I call my inner circle. And when I have an issue, whether it's major or minor, I have already cleared it with them. I've asked them this 10 years ago, most of them, and said, if I have an issue, can I pick up the phone and dial or text you and ask you for your input? Yes. Now, look, I have a criteria for those people. One, if I don't take their advice, they can't be the person that gets mad at me. That's not going to be a person that works with me, right? They have to be willing to say, all right, hey, you asked, I gave you the insight. Also, do I trust them implicitly? Would I leave my youngest daughter with them when she was, would I leave my bank account in their possession with all the access codes? Would I give them my PIN to my debit card? What would I do this? Yes. Okay, great. So I have criteria for everyone in my life. My inner circle has a criteria, and they've all met that. And that's why we have developed relationship. They call me and ask me for insight. I call them and ask them for insight. Sometimes they pay me. Sometimes I pay them. Sometimes we just do it gratis. But I think when you surround yourself with the right people, not only do you get better answers, you get better results. Because those people that give you that insight are like, okay, dude, you didn't take my advice, but what can I do to support you now? And we move forward.
Wow.
And I've been blessed to have those. But it's come at a price.
Yeah. And, you know, Bob, so many people that know you now, they see that you have this inner circle and what you've created. And what inspired you to move in that direction, to really start surrounding yourself with people that you looked up to and inspired you? And, you know, what like, when did that come about for you?
Yeah. At age 19.
Wow.
At 15, I learned the importance of, you know, knowing what to do, how to do something differently. At 19, I had a gentleman who's I was working with a young kid. His dad happened to be an attorney. His stepdad happened to be an attorney. His stepdad called me up and says, I need you to come by the office one day. And I'm thinking, why am I going to his office? I've been to his house. Why? I get why I go to his house. Why am I going to his office? I was nervous. Walked in. He said, sit down. I sit down. He says, you know, you've just really done a great job with our son, and I think you need to play a bigger game. And I'm like, what does that look like? He's, well, I think you need to start, you know, filing a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I think you need to put together a board of directors. I think you need to start going out and speaking and raising funds. I'm like, whoa, I'm 19 years old. You know, are you sure this, you know, this, I'm the guy? He's like, yeah, you are. I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, first thing you need to do is put together a board of reference. I said, nobody's going to trust me. He goes, well, if you have an attorney on your board of directors or board of reference, other professionals will feel protected.
Wow.
I'll be the attorney. So right then I learned borrowed credibility. Right? I didn't have the credibility, but he did. So then he said, make a list of professionals, doctors, lawyers, psychologists, psychiatrists, marriage family therapists, police officers, school officials, people like that with credibility. Make a list of people that you know, maybe their friends, your friends' dads or moms, maybe, you know, whatever it is. I said, okay, great. So I made a list. He goes, okay, now I want you to call them. So he gave me exact words to say, and I can't remember exactly, but he basically said, here's what I want you to say. Look, you know that I have a heart for kids, and I've been working with kids for the last 3 or 4 years with somebody else's nonprofit. It's been suggested by my attorney that I found a nonprofit organization. We just filed a 501c3 nonprofit, and here's my attorney's name, and he recommended that I call somebody like yourself and ask you to be on my board of reference. Would you be willing and open to that discussion? 7 people, 6 said yes immediately. The one said, I'm out of town. I'll be back next week. Let's get together. Got together, said yes. I had a sergeant of narcotics for LA County PD. I had an attorney. I had a principal of a public high school. I had a marriage and family therapist. I had a psychologist and a psychiatrist, right? And I had a parent that was also an author. Now, wow, how did I get those people? How did I get them to stand in the gap for me? Well, because I had used and I understood borrowed credibility. The magical thing about that and is the blessing that was in that is all of those professionals, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, and marriage family therapists, they all said they would work with anybody I brought to them for free on one condition. I said, what's the condition? You have to be willing to be present in every session we give away. Because they wanted me to learn. They also wanted me to know what was being said so I could support it outside of the office. Well, that was, you know, I have a friend of mine that was a PhD from USC. He says, you know, your PhD in business or in psychology is better than mine. He goes, because you got practical and tactical experience. So, but then I've taken that and I've done that over 75 different times where I've taken somebody and said, can I work for you for free for X amount of time? Whether it's a week, a day, an hour, whatever it is, can I work with you for free? And one of them, one was a gentleman who made $6 million one year, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, how do you make all that money? And so I said, hey, can I buy you breakfast one day? He said, sure, sit down for breakfast. He said, I know what you want to know. You want to know how I made all that money because everyone's asking. I said, no, I don't really care how you made that money because there's a lot of different ways to make money. He goes, then what's your question? And I looked at him, I said, you know, the question I have is who did you have to become in order to make that kind of money? And he went, I've never been asked that question. I said, well, I believe the quality of your connection will always be determined by the quality of questions you ask. It's one of the connectology pillars. And he said, and I was 25 at this time. And he said, let me think about that. I said, okay, well, while you're thinking about that, let me ask you this. I want to work for you for free 1 day a week for an indefinite period of time. We can decide as we go. 1 day a week, I'll work for you for free. He goes, Bob, I'm 42 years old. I'm retired. I have nothing for you to do. I said, look, man, I will shag balls on your tennis court. I will be your caddy. I'll wash your car. I'll do your gardening. You tell me what you want. I'll do it. He goes, why would you do that? And I said, because I want to see how you live your life. I want to see how you live. That's going to determine whether I want to do it or not. I know a lot of people that give up everything in their life to get X amount. Not interested in that. He said, okay. I went to work for him a couple of weeks later, maybe the next week. Went to work for him, pulled up at his house. He says, get in the car. I said, where are we going? He goes, don't ask. He says, when you're being mentored, just do what you're told. I said, great. Point taken, got in the car, drove down to downtown LA. We look at this big, tall skyscraper, and he goes, we're going to go to the top floor. There's a boardroom there. I'm meeting with a company. I'm meeting with their chief executive officer. I'm meeting with their attorney. I'm meeting with their CPA. I've got my attorney, my CPA meeting me there, and we're going to discuss whether I buy this business or not. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He says, be a fly on the wall. I said, done. I can do that. He says, great. So I become this fly on the wall. I walk in, sit down. He takes the P&Ls are out on the table, profit and losses, and the contract to buy the company. And he turns to his attorney and says, I want you to take the contract, and I want you to go over in the corner with Bob, and I want you to explain to him, go line by line with the contract, and explain why this makes sense for me to sign or not sign. So the attorney does that. So he takes the P&Ls, he turns to the CPA, does the same thing. CPA says, okay, great, goes line by line, everything else. Every day that I worked for him for the next 6 months was like that. I got a PhD in business because all I was a fly on the wall. I went into shareholder meetings. I went into buying properties. We eventually bought 4 properties. We ended up selling those properties. I became the seller of those properties. It was just an amazing experience. Now, had I not asked him, what can I do for you for free? And then given him suggestions, because his original response was, I don't have anything for you to do. I mean, I'll do anything. Just tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
I've done that with over 75 different people. I've had amazing experiences. 1, because of my coachability. 2, because I'm willing to surround myself with people that are smarter than me, brighter than me, have way, way more experience than me. And I'm willing to just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
And most people aren't.
Really what I'm hearing is that you're approaching them and not asking them, what can they do for you? You're going, what can I do for you? Not really wanting to help them. And in that, you've gotten like this amazing education because you just wanted to be a support to them and learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? One of the other gentlemen was driving a Rolls Royce, and I pulled him next to him, and I had a little Hyundai Excel, and pulled him next to him, and I rolled down my window, and he rolls down his. His is a button, mine's a roller. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, we're at a stoplight. I said, can I buy you lunch sometime? He looks at me and goes, why? And I said, well, clearly you've done something I haven't done at this point in my life. He kind of laughs. He goes, pull over. I pull over. I walk up to his car thinking we're going to exchange business cards. He goes, get in. I'm like, okay. Trade for a Rolls Royce, a Hyundai. Okay, great. I get in the car. We drive around. He shows me these old apartment buildings that he bought over the years. Came over here from, I think, the Middle East. Came over here and brought over 1 family member at a time, amassed a fortune. And I remember when we were sitting there at lunch afterwards, he says, Bob, he says, why would you get into a stranger's car? And I said, because I wanted to learn. I said, I've got a better question for you. He says, what's that? I said, why would you let a stranger into your car? And he says, for the same reason, because you wanted to learn. He says, Bob, I can name on one hand the number of people that said, I just want to learn from you versus I want to take from you. He goes, I can name on one hand. He goes, anybody that's willing to say, I just want to learn, I will teach them everything I know for free.
Wow.
And he was one of my greatest mentors. And again, we only had a short period of time. We maybe only had 3 or 4 conversations after that, but his name is Luke Thodem. He's passed away since then. But probably one of the greatest mentors that I've had, even though we probably only met 4 or 5 times, and only one of those was in person.
Wow. I love that story. Wow. It makes me think I asked that very same question. Well, not even a question. I recently just said to somebody who was, a multimillionaire, and I asked him, basically, I said, I would like to learn. And you know what he said to me? He says, you were in the pro bodybuilding world, weren't you? And I said, yeah. He said, do you know when you got ready for a show, how you would plan the show out 12 weeks in advance? And then you set the intentions in the day of what you were going to do. You had 6 or 7 meals you were going to eat per day, and you were going to exercise certain times per day. And he walked me through this for the whole 12 weeks. And he said, he says, guess what? That's how I became a multimillionaire. He says, I had a certain mindset that I kept every single day. He said, I kept intending, I kept visualizing in my head. He said, I kept feeling the joy I would feel, from that place that, I was fit and I was healthy and I was well. And so that leads me into my next question for you around that. What's the difference between mastering your inner game and your mindset? Is it the same thing?
Great question. No, it's not. Inner game is everything, including your mindset. Mindset is really just the way you think about something, right? It's that thought process. Inner game is your past experiences, your values, your personal constitution, your experiences, both past, present, and future, how you see the future, all of that. That's your inner game. And your inner game must be strong enough to support the actions required for the result desired. I want to make $10,000 in sales. That means I'm going to have to make 500 appointments. That means I'm going to have to make 2,500 calls to get the 500 appointments. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to be required to do that. Your inner game will be required to do that. Your mindset will have a portion of that, but your inner game, your personal constitution, your commitment levels, your everything that makes you up who you are today will be the determining factor on whether you will or whether you won't do those 500, 2,500 and get that amount of sales. So we have to look at it from the strategic standpoint of my inner game is my foundation. Most of us have a foundation that's been poured for a single bedroom, a single story, 3-bedroom house, 2-bath. That's it. It's enabled us to get through high school, get through college, maybe get a job, right? But now we start adding a relationship, not just a relationship, but now a marriage. Now we're not just a marriage. Now we've got kids. Now we've got kids. Now we've got not just a job, but now a career. Now we've got debt that we've got to figure out how do we overcome that. Now we've got all these things. Right. Well, we have literally added 3 and 4 and 5 stories to a house where the foundation was only poured for a single story. And guess what happens? Mm-hmm. It cracks. Mm-hmm. And that's what normally happens. So I say, as you build your life, make sure that you're building a foundation strong enough to support the actions required for the result that you desire. Then build to the next level, build to the next level. And one of the next level pillars is every next level of anything, your health, relationship, finances, business, spirituality, no matter what, every next level will demand, not request, but demand a different you. And so you're going to have to evolve in this process. And so in order to do that, that's where we lay that foundation. Your inner game is the foundation. Mm-hmm. The foundation. And without it, the whole house comes tumbling down.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's really, when you look at both parts of it, you start to really understand the importance of both. That, I mean, we hear a lot about mindset, but we don't necessarily always hear a lot about the inner game and what that really means and what that really looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And mindset, like I said, I'm a big fan of mindset, but I just realized it's a portion of. Yeah. It's not the all-inclusive.
It's part of that.
Yeah.
Bob, I'm wondering, you have grandchildren.
Yeah. 3.
And I'm curious as to, what, are they old enough that they can start learning some of your pillars? And are you imparting some of this wisdom to them?
My grandchildren are 6 and 2, and 6 and 2. And so not fully, but I know my 6-year-old really picks up on things really quick. Mm-hmm. And so he does understand some of that. But the funny thing is when you're raising your kids and your daughter or your kids quote you to you. And that's the interesting part. When my daughter says, when she was growing up, I said something, she goes, "Yeah, I know, Dad, I've been to your seminar." Or, "Dad, well, is that what you would say to a client?" Like, oh, man. Stab me in the heart. But, she's 32 now, 31 now. So, but yeah, I think, yes, it's a dripping effect at this age because at that age, but it's a dripping effect. Again, all I can say, ladies, is, man, we're meant for so much more than what we're doing. We talked about the coronavirus. We talked, man, life is so much more than that. Life is so much more than the game we're playing right now. And I don't care how big you're playing. I mean, I've surrounded myself with some of the most successful people in the world. And even to that person, I would look at them and I would say, and you still have not scratched the surface. Mm-hmm. You still haven't scratched the surface. And I mean that because, Joel Osteen has a great saying. He says, "I believe that your best days are ahead of you." Yes. And I truly believe that. I believe our best days are ahead of us. And yet, although sometimes I don't feel like it, and sometimes I don't act like it. And so I need that reminder. And I saw somebody type in accountability. We need that accountability. I've got people on this call that are accountability people in my life. If I'm stepping off to the side, they'll be like, "Dude, really? Are you sure about that?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. And again, you surround yourself with people that can say whatever they need to say to get your attention. And you may get pissed. That's okay. But Is the relationship at stake? No, the relationship was never at stake. They can say anything they want. And I think, you ladies are on this new venture, and you guys are doing some things right now. You ladies are doing some things right now. And I just want to encourage you that surround yourself with people that will speak life into you, but will also speak that accountability and share from their heart. And a lot of times, maybe it's in a great coach, maybe it's in a great friend, whatever that is, but make sure that you're just surrounding yourself with those people, because man, everything I've done has really been as a result of the people I've associated with and my ability to be coachable.
Well, and it's also willing to allow yourself to, as you said, think in a higher state, think in a higher association with people, like the people that you surround yourself with, like your Mark Victor Hansons and a lot of the people that you've mentioned.
Sure.
And like with us three, we're surrounding ourselves with you. And that association has introduced us and brought us around so many of the people that you're speaking about, at another level. And so now we're able to create relationships with those kind of people and connections with those kind of people. And honestly, we're realizing they're people just like us.
Absolutely. And sometimes they're not as evolved as you. And I say that there's a lot of people that have great credentials that aren't as evolved as some of you. There's Mr. Swanson right there. Think about him, who he surrounded himself with. I mean, I've met some great people through Eric Swanson. I've met some people that I consider great friends of mine today through Eric. And I think, the thing is do you surround yourself with people that are willing to make introductions without having the necessity to be a center of that introduction? Let me explain. I introduced to somebody. My thing is, when I introduce them, I want to know that I can walk away, never be a part of that conversation again, and that I'll still be remembered for the introduction. Not that it has to be mentioned every time, but that I'll still be I'll still be remembered, and that I don't have to be in every conversation. There's a lot of people that make introductions and then they want to be a part of every conversation, or they feel slighted. I'm like, man, the more you can do that without me, the better off I am, because when you guys are talking about me and I'm not there, I've just multiplied my impact ratio without me having to spend more time to do it.
Awesome. So do you have any parting words for us? It's been an hour already. I can't believe, I just love everything you share, and this time has flown by. I mean, share with us any imparting words that you'd like to leave with our audience.
Yeah, I think, you ladies are part of Next Level by Association, the virtual, right? And so Next Level by Association is my flagship thing, because I think it's one of the coolest things to be able to once a week stay in connection with a group of people that are really wanting to grow, really wanting to develop, and then take those introductions like Mark Victor Hansen, or like some of the people that I associated with, and you to be able to hang out with them, even if it's virtually right now. To be able to look them in the eye through a computer and through a camera and ask them a question and get an answer, versus being on a podcast and hear them and go, well, I wish I could ask this question, but it doesn't happen. So I think that's one of the things. Surround yourself with those people, being able to do that. I think, one of the great things about Next Level by Association is the coaching component to that. We have that weekly group coaching call. And, every week I host a weekly group coaching call, and I've done it for 8 or 9 years now. And I want to invite anyone on your call that if they want to type this in, if they'll text HVN, High Vibe Nation, get it? You see that? HVN to 949-229-8016. They will get an invite to a group coaching call tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Then I'm just again. I put capitals, sorry.
HVN, High Vibe Nation, 949-229-8016. Just type in or text HVN, and you'll get a link to register for a call I'm going to do 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, so that anyone that's listening who wants to hop on a coaching call, they can experience a group coaching call. And I'll stay on. As many people want to get on, I'll stay on and answer any question you can ask, personal or professional. But I will tell you this, I'm very laser focused on the coaching calls, as you ladies know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, we're not going to mince words, and we're not going to listen to story. It's going to be solution, laser focus is going to be the key. But bring any question you want. I'll address it. And if I don't know it, I'll refer it out and I'll get you to somebody who can.
Okay, so let's make sure we have this right on the screen. HVN 229-949-229-8016.
No, it's 949. Forget the
on.
first 229.
Okay,
949-229-8016. It's a phone number.
got it. There we go.
And so anyone who wants to hop on that, and then we'll throw in something else. Tomorrow night is Next Level by Association, the third Thursday of every month. I've done for 10 years in Orange County, because we're not meeting personally anymore because of this whole thing right now. We do it virtually, and tomorrow night we have a guest of honor that you guys are not going to want to miss. It's going to be an amazing experience, and so I'll invite you as my guest to come and sit down. That's membership only or first-time guest. Come as my guest, or the guest of these three ladies. Come be a part of that tomorrow night. You're going to want to hear, and then you're going to be able to want to see the questions that people ask this person, and then how you're going to learn and take from that. So you got 1, a free group coaching call. 2, you have access to Next Level by Association virtual tomorrow night. That's at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. Man, I think if you take action on both of those, and you don't walk away a better person, you have to own that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening in tonight. Thank you for sharing this out with all of your listeners. I want to ask my co-hosts here if there's anything they want to leave a parting message with.
So I guess what I would say is, who's ever on, take action. You've got 2 opportunities, right? Take the action.
Yeah.
Take the action, get on the calls. And thank you again so much for being here with us tonight. Always a joy to share these amazing, wonderful people out with you. And thank you for sharing this with the people you know as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you again, everybody. We'll see you next Monday on the High Vibe Nation at 5:00 p.m. We'll have an amazing guest. You can find us out on the web at www.thehighvibenation.com. You can also find us on Facebook, The High Vibe Nation, and on Instagram, The High Vibe Nation. Thank you so much again for joining in with us tonight, and have a great rest of the week.
The High Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons, Pamela Aubrey, and Christy Jones. So let's join them now in